And a good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you as we have election night again, June the 9th, 2026. More primaries, and the Dems go all out Nazi. And we got a lot to talk about tonight, to say the least. We're good to see everybody. We've got a wonderful show ahead. We got Macklin Rose coming up here in just a second, and Leslie Millwee will be joining us later tonight for a chit-chat about some things, and we got a lot to talk about. But first of all, Magdalene Rose is on the phone with me. My dear, I call her my goddaughter. She's like my own flesh and blood, but we always turn to her on these election nights to get her take on it. Kid, good to see you tonight. How are you doing? And thank you for joining us on a Tuesday night. It seems that the Dems have gone all out Nazi, have they not?
Well, Well, they definitely have. And I think that a lot of this is also because Democrats are at a place where they don't actually have anything to focus on. They are really struggling. And this is something Republicans aren't hitting enough. They're not talking about the fact that they're really struggling. If you look at the mess that Democrats are running, there's no face Democrats running this year, you wouldn't be able to say anything. If you think back to 2019 or 2018, rather, Nancy Pelosi did everything about healthcare, and she's really successful with that. That's not what's happening here, and I think that's become clear.
Why do you think they've taken such a turn left? Let me just say to the audience tonight what we're referring to. The Graham Platner has won nearly 70% of the vote in the Dems Senate primary over Janet Mills, the governor there tonight, and it is prohibitive favorite. He's going to walk away with this, and he likely will be facing Susan Collins in the general election come November, unless the Dems dump him. But, Magna, why have they gone so far left? You look at Mandami, you look at him, you look at this Tirico, who's nothing but a liar. He's turned into a complete liar now. He's backing off all of his radical claims. And they're not the only ones. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ariana Presley, the Jasmine Crockett is still, Al Green. These people should have never darkened the door of Congress, but this is who the Dems are put in power. And even these jackanapes that are on that was on that committee today with the SPLC head, I mean, some of the questions and the things they said about our country, I mean, you know, in the old days, they would have been expelled for such. But today it's applauded, and people think it's cool and rogue. Why has this happened? How has this happened?
Well, I think this is happening because across the board, Democrats have nothing to talk about. Like, they're at a place now where if you see one with a legitimate economic plan, it's surprising. And that's something that's come from bad party leadership.
That comes from what? You broke up a little bit there.
Bad party leadership.
On the Republican side or the Democrat side?
On the Democrat side, they have no leaders.
Okay. Without having a leader, then where do they turn? You got a midterms. Does that matter to the public then? In the midterms, there's no leadership, or do you think people just hate Trump so bad and hate what the Republicans are doing that they're gonna give these people back power? And you know what they're gonna do with it? They're gonna the first day in January of 2029 or 27. They're going to try to impeach him. They're probably going to succeed if they take the House. They may not get it through the Senate, but they're going to definitely succeed in the House.
Well, they will. And if you look at the failures to pass the Senate by Republicans, I mean, it's a problem. They've had the Republican conservative victories I think we all expected, not because we thought Congress would get itself together and be perfect, but because I think there was a belief that this would be a truly conservative administration. And it just hasn't been. You know, the war in Iran is a problem. It's not being involved. It continues on. Even if you support it, I think that a fair criticism is that it does go back and forth quite a lot. So I don't know if Democrats will resume power, but if they do, I think it's because of Republican ineffectiveness in Congress. I blame a lot of this on John Thune.
Speaking of John Thune tonight, he's out there laughing at the fact that President Trump may turn on him. And we don't, spread hearsay on the program. I read a report today, and I don't know if it was just somebody posting a meme or somebody had facts, but there is a growing rumor, I'll just say it like this, that him and the parliamentarian are a little bit more closer than just Senate buddies. I don't know that to be true. But she seems to be standing in the way of a lot of these procedural votes that could pave the way for the, vote to be taken for the Save America Act. And he's standing there mocking and laughing tonight like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal.
Well, it is a big deal, and it's something that isn't surprising, though. Like, his failures are not surprising. We should have gone with Rick Scott. We've been punished ever since. We should have had Rick Scott and Kevin McCarthy leading this party. But, we got rid of them because Matt Gaetz didn't like them or whatever the nonsense was at the time. And that's a very frustrating realization. I think Johnson does okay, but he's not killing it. He's not remarkably capable, and that's the difference here. Democrats don't have someone like that either, but John Thune is a massive letdown.
At what point, we're in June right now, at what point does it become a moot point that they even pass this thing? Because we've got You got 4 months, kid. I mean, before we vote, 4.5. And is he just running the clock out and then pass it at the last minute where nothing can be done about it, and then he can sit back and take a victory lap and say, well, I got it passed. I don't know what y'all upset about. Because I just sense that this is what he's trying to do. And the other question I got for you is, where are 5 senators with something called manhood between their legs that can vote this guy out? It only takes 5 to come to the floor of the Senate and say, we want new leadership. 5. And Magdalene, you can't tell me that between the Jim Jordans, between the Rick Scotts, between the Tim Scotts, and all these people that are supposedly supposed to be so strong that they can see this and like what's happening and not speak up. Because the worst case scenario, it may not be Rick Scott that gets elected, but Thune is gone. I just believe Thune is gone if they take a vote.
Well, of course he'd be gone, but there's no courage by the Republicans right now. It is a disgrace what's happening. And I think Thune is such an example of somebody who convinces Donald Trump of ridiculousness. Like, I'm sure Thune got in there and convinced Donald Trump that he was so efficient and he could do all these things. He's accomplished nothing. Any victory in Congress has been because of Donald Trump, not John Thune. And as John Thune continues to fail across the board, it's interesting that he continues to not accept it. Like, John Thune is the most delusional Senate Majority Leader I've ever seen. He's responsible for none of the problems and all of the victories. And that's just not how it works. I mean, Mitch McConnell was a massive success compared to John Thune.
Yeah, and that's not saying much. I mean, that's not saying much at all. Well, I think it was James Wood, the actor, and he figured it up that I think there's only been 30 bills that have been even brought to the Senate floor under Thune's leadership. That's the lowest ever. I mean, that is the lowest ever on either side of the aisle. And you know, and again, my question's not about Thune anymore. My question's, where's the Rick Jordans, Jim Jordans? Where's the Rick Scotts? Where's the Tim Scotts? Where is, you know, and I watched that interview tonight, or that press conference. Barrasso and Langford from Oklahoma was behind him, and they were smirking along with him. They need to go too. Josh Hawley needs to go. All these pathetic individuals that have sit there and blocked these recess appointments when Thune takes a vacation for 10 days and thinking it's cool and unique when we're in the middle of the biggest financial, you know, crisis and the biggest fraud in California history that's going on right in front of our eyes. And he thinks it's vogue to take a 10-day vacation because he don't get his way, and his little buddies Cornyn and Massey and Phyllis are going to be gone in January. It just sickens me. And I think that this is what sickens people out here, Magdalene, and the public. They are sick and tired of this stuff. And, you know, again, I get asked this question, what can we do? We got to vote. But you're going to have to beat the phones down in South Carolina and Florida to some of these leaders, and in Ohio with Jordan, and say, hey, get off your butt and vote him out. I mean, that's the only thing I know you can do at this point, right?
Well, that's very true. And a lot of the problems we have in this primary system is that I think the Trump team made some mistakes this primary season. The amount of time and money that was allocated to defeat people Trump just doesn't like is like baffling to me. I just don't understand the lack of focus on more competitive races. And like the situation in California with Spencer Pratt. Spencer Pratt's people are alluding that there was very little legal support on the part of the Republican Party because the Spencer Pratt people are Hollywood people. They don't know how to work the ballot chasing system that the Republicans do. It seems that Spencer Pratt had asked for, you know, legal support, had asked for the RNC to get their lawyers there to do what they always do, which is get those votes counted ethically and legally. And the RNC was kind of like, we're okay.
Don't surprise me one bit.
So you contrast that with how much money they put towards getting rid of Thomas Massey, whether you like him or not, so that you'll spend money on. But your guy had a chance at the mayor of LA position, and you wouldn't send your lawyers that are already on call, already on retainer. Like, you don't lose any money from doing this.
Thanks, well,
and Spencer Pratt was left out to dry. And then also, Steve Hilton got into that primary with no support from the RNC in California. And he's been very vocal about that, feeling betrayed. So, I mean, he's doing the best he can, but the RNC just doesn't seem to care about California.
No, and that's what, again, makes them worse to me than the Democrats. we've got a dear friend out there, Rachel Ham, who ran for Secretary of State 4 years ago. When it was around 2020, it was around the same time Trump was running against Biden. They did the same thing to her, Mag. She reached out. She said, Chris, they didn't even return her calls. They basically backed a establishment candidate that was basically half Democrat. And it makes you wonder why we even have a Republican Party. It makes you wonder why we have a Democrat. These parties have left the American public. And I want to ask you a question tonight, and it has to do on subject, but it's sort of off subject. Do you support a third party rising up in this country and starting afresh? Because I don't, that may be a way out of this, but I know third parties have never fared well overall in elections, and it's tough because you have to start at the ground roots. You got to get money, and the establishment is entrenched in this country. It's entrenched in states. It's entrenched in Washington. It's entrenched in city councils, and it's hard to get these swamp people out of the system. But I don't see any other way, Mag, than a third party run by somebody that's got some guts and has got some money behind them, like a Trump, but conservative, not like Tom Sawyer in California, who's a billionaire nuts.
I mean, I don't like the idea of a third party just because I think Republicans always suffer more than Democrats do. Because people, and the third parties I'm always frustrated with whenever I see a young conservative pushing one, because they're like, oh, we don't have a side. And then I go to your website and you're completely pro-abortion and you love liberal policies and you just don't want to live under socialism. Well, that's nice. Then just vote Republican. Like, if that's where you are, it's a frustrating thing for me, but I get the frustration. Donald Trump does well, but he has let down on some things, and I think he's made bad staffing choices. And honestly, at this point, after 4 years of Biden, I kind of don't have patience for the poor staffing choices. Like, just know better. Like, just know that the AG needed to be more cutthroat. Like, just know these things at this point. I feel like we've lost a lot of time. And Elon Musk used to have this thing in his bio on Twitter that said that people voted for massive reform. We did. We voted for massive reform after living under totalitarianism with Biden. I don't think we've gotten that reform, and I will tell you, people are really frustrated about that.
I'm totally with you on that, and I just want to say we were going to have Jacob Engel on tonight, and we're going to have Jacob next week. But you and Jacob are about the same age, kid. What is the young people? How does Steve Hilton play with the young people? Because he's y'all's age. I mean, he's young. Yeah. Spencer's young, and it seemed like that Spencer had garnered quite a bit of youth vote. And you know what else he garnered? He garnered a lot of Democrat support. He was basically polling the way his numbers were looking up. I was looking at some of his dynamics. It wasn't just Republicans that were fed up with Karen Bass that were voting for him, Mac. He was pulling the Democrat machine. Some of these Democrats were voting for him.
They were, and this is why I'm so frustrated by the RNC. I think that the RNC really left Spencer Pratt out there. And it wasn't like Spencer Pratt did anything to the RNC. Like, sometimes a candidate trashes them. He just didn't need their help. Like, he didn't need their help in the process. And can you imagine a regular comms consultant from the RNC getting involved? It would have been a disaster. He didn't need them, but he needed their lawyers. He needed their legal team. He needed the people who can do the things that Hollywood people can't do. Like, he did need those people. And again, we failed him. We failed him, and he never broke line. Like, he was Republican through and through. He backed capitalism. He backed all these things. So in the same breath that we failed him on the legal side, Steve Hilton, who used to have a Fox News show, the RNC abandoned, and he's over the threshold. And you know why he's over the threshold, honestly? He brought in a lot of his European strategist friends from when he had in charge of David Cameron stuff in the UK. He didn't rely on them. And, that's the lesson here. Don't rely on the RNC.
Do you think that there is a case for investigations into these mail-in ballots? Do you think that there's going to be any kind of push to investigate this? And do you think there's a chance this could be overturned?
I think the LA mayor's primary is a disgrace. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's extremely obvious what happened here. So you're going to tell me a no-name person, not an insult to her, but nobody knew who she was, suddenly cleared the second area threshold a week after, in the middle of the night, and all the ballot dumps. Like, I don't go to every race was stolen. But I find this one extremely suspect. And, Spencer Pratt does too. You can see it in his tweets. But he has no recourse. And this is my frustration with this RNC that will spend millions of dollars to get rid of Thomas Massey, but won't send Spencer Pratt, like a 3-guy legal team, to try to possibly just have, fairness. How does that make any sense?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. And it irritates me with the RNC, and it lets you know that there's no RNC in California. That it's basically a bunch of Democrats in RNC clothing. And what's your feeling on the federal government? Is there anything the federal government could do to step in and stop this steal? Because they're going to be counting votes to July the 6th.
Yeah, they will.
Do you think there's anything that Trump can do?
Well, I'd love for Kash Patel to do anything. I mean, Kash Patel for years and years talked about how if he ever got real power, would make there be real accountability. He would utilize the FBI to ensure the safety of elections. The things Kash Patel for years and years said, you would think he's still a commentator because of the lack of them that have been done. It's extremely frustrating. I don't understand how this is any different than the first Trump administration. I mean, maybe Trump is a little bit more disciplined, his messaging. I think he also cares less about what the media thinks, which is good. But we could have sent a fleet of lawyers. We could have sent police officers, law enforcement, federal agents to secure that election. We could have done that. And you know what? We have nothing to hide, so stack the room with liberal journalists. Put Anderson Cooper in there. Tell Rachel Maddow to broadcast live. We could have done it. Why didn't we do it? And then in the same breath, we did nothing for Steve Hilton. And then we're going to say, we're so successful. Why? Because you threw Thomas Massey out of a tight primary in Kentucky? That's your marker of success, and you threw away California. I know somebody who works on the Steve Hilton campaign, and that's why this is so frustrating. And she said to me for months, you don't understand. They've abandoned us. They do not care. But you know who hasn't abandoned Steve Hilton? You know who tried to get lawyers in for Spencer Pratt? Kevin McCarthy. Yep. Kevin McCarthy was in California on the ground helping Hilton as much as he could, fundraising. Spencer Pratt telling him how the basics work, trying to get lawyers there. Kevin McCarthy should be head of the RNC. And
Kevin McCarthy should still be Speaker of the House. And I'll have to admit, when Matt Gaetz pulled this mess, at that time, and this was about two or 3 years ago, during Biden's time, I had a lot of respect for Matt Gaetz. I lost every bit of it after this happened, and then to see him go so anti-Semitic made me feel like a fool, and I think it made a lot of people feel like a fool that we put their faith in this jackanape loser. And look, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt with these accusations of these girls, and after all this has happened, I'm just shaking my head, wondering if all of it wasn't true. I mean, that's how I feel. That's how I feel tonight.
I wonder, because Kevin McCarthy doesn't have those types of accusations against him, and never
has. No, he don't.
And Kevin McCarthy, I think, very reasonably didn't want Matt Gaetz in Congress. Because the thing is, if you do bad things, it makes you subject to blackmail. And this is kind of the nuance I think we've forgotten in politics. You cannot have somebody with national secrets who's hiding bad behavior, because then they can be bought. You can buy state secrets. That's literally the core issue here of why you can't have those people. Kevin McCarthy was concerned. He was concerned about foreign influence on Matt Gaetz, domestic influence, Democrats being able to buy him off. We lost Kevin McCarthy because Matt Gaetz didn't want an ethics violation. And what did it get Matt Gaetz? At the end of the day,
nothing.
A shoddy show on One American News, that was worth it. That was worth blowing it up.
And nobody watched it. And then he embarrassed. I think Trump made a terrible mistake, even putting his name out there for Attorney General, and went with Bondi. And and again, I love President Trump, but there have been some missteps with decisions at personnel. He does have a struggle with putting people in place that are actually going to help the country.
I know.
And I'm going to go here a little bit with his vice president. J.D. Vance needs to keep his mouth shut right now.
Yep.
I think he is hurting the Republicans' chances for the midterms. I think he's sort of drawing a fissure in the base. Now, this is my opinion. I know there's some J.D. Vance fans out here, and they're entitled to their opinion. this Israeli-U.S. division is growing, and a lot of it is growing because a lot of people perceive J.D. Vance as a Tucker Carlson puppet and a Candace puppet because he doesn't renounce the anti-Semitism of his own ilk. And if he don't do that, Mag, it's gonna tear the mega, whatever you want to call it, the movement or the party. If we're a party, I don't know what we are at this point. But I'm going to tell you this. Israel is not the problem in the Middle East. And J.D. Vance going on shows and saying, well, our interests are not going to line up with Israel's all the time is not something that you say publicly. That's something you get in a room behind the scenes and you talk to Bibi about and you iron it out. Because all that does is give Iran hope that there's going to be space between America and Israel. That's what the enemies of America and the enemies of Israel have always hoped for. That we, our two nations, which Israel's the only democratic country in the Middle East tonight, and they're fighting for survival. They're fighting wars on 7 fronts, just about still. But yet we want to throw her under the bus, and it goes back to your analogy with Massey. Why do we spend all of our time forcing Israel not to defend herself, and instead of calling the Iranians up with the F-bomb, we call Israel up with the F-bomb. And then J.D. Vance out there running his trap about, well, I think that our interest in Israel's are not going to be the same in all this. Well, I tell you what, they better be. I don't mean to be so blunt about it. They better be. Because we got a mortal enemy that wants to destroy us both. And pardon me for getting a little wired up there, but
no,
is your grandfather right?
Well, also, I don't think J.D. Vance wants to be president.
That's a great point.
Don't think he wants to be president. Not everyone does. That's not a sin. And I think some people think it is. I do not believe at all that man wants to be president. I think that he was pulled into this by Charlie Kirk, who thought that Charlie Kirk himself could be Vance's VP. I think that he is ill-suited to this position. This is a man who wanted to be a successful lawyer and have a lot of money and have a good time and be with his wife. This man does not want to be president. And now he is so uninspiring and depressing that you're right. He is fracturing the base. I mean, he also is like a man of no substance. We all know that he disagreed with the primarying of Thomas Massey. We all know it. He didn't say it. He can't say it. Every position he had is gone. And there's a liberal journalist who does an overview of like the Vance switch-ups every day. He switches up everything. There's nothing he's loyal to except not disagreeing with Donald Trump. And look, I get that. But also, Donald Trump is a lame duck president. And Vance could be distinguishing himself and he just isn't.
Yeah, I don't know what his issue is, but do you agree with any of this that he said about Israel? Look, are you in agreement with what I said about that we need to align ourselves with them, do we not? I mean, we're fighting the same enemy.
We do. Well, we do. But the problem here is that a lot of conservative media gave airtime to these lunatics for years.
That's
to Candace Owens, to Tucker, to others. And what happened there was that they became legitimized. Like Jeremy Boring at the Daily Wire, the head of it, says his biggest regret in life is hiring Candace Owens. And he's like genuinely choked up about it because he knows what he did. He knows that by hiring Candace Owens, he took her from a commentator to a media figure. He put the money behind her, and he knows that it was horrendous to do. But he did it because he thought she was a star. I disagree with this idea. Just because someone is a star does not mean you have to make them a star. Just because someone's talented doesn't mean that you don't look at them and go, hey, their rhetoric is dangerous and crazy. Let's not elevate that. But what happened with the Trump era of politics is if you have the talent for it, you're going to be elevated. And that was not the case before. About Israel specifically, we don't even know what goes on in Israel. We don't know what goes on in Iran. There's no world reporting. When was the last time CNN embedded in Israel for 5 days to find out what those people are living through?
Nowhere. No, they never do that. The individual out there that says the third party would split the Republicans, are we not split already, Mac? We're already split. I mean, when you get down to it, we're already split. And I'm not saying the third party's a solution, but this idea that it's going to split the Republicans is a joke. The Republicans are already split. We can't agree on nothing.
It's a mess.
And I think your analogy of what happened in California is an excellent point. What happened with Massey is an excellent point. We got rid of a crazy nut job in Massey. Okay, let's all take a victory lap. He's
the most expensive primary
absolutely.
in American history.
I mean, and he's vacationing in Costa Rica, laughing his butt off. He don't care. They don't care. But then again, it's frustrating to me. And look, Steve Hilton has got a chance. If the Republicans would get behind him in California, Mac, I believe he's got a chance. He may not ultimately succeed because it's such a machine out there he's up against. But if he can just have a fighting chance with his own party, I think he could pull an upset in November against this crazy left-wing loon bomb government that these Californians have been under the boot of for 20 years now.
Yeah, well, and the idea that Republicans are abandoning this after all the nonsense runs they backed. I mean, the stupid runs where no one was going to win. And yet you can't throw a little bit of support to a man who's been loyal to your party, had a show on Fox News.
I know.
You can't throw him a little bit of fundraising. Kevin McCarthy's out there scrapping in the field for him. And you can't help him. You can't send Spencer Pratt a lawyer. Spencer Pratt has no idea what's going on. You can't do these basic things. And yet I'm constantly told this is the best RNC ever. This is the RNC to end all RNCs.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Is it better than Ronna McDaniel? Well, literally anything was better than Ronna McDaniel.
Chris could have been better. I could have taken over the RNC and been better than Ronna McDaniel. That's not saying much, Mac.
It's not a high bar. It was such a disaster. And she was so incompetent and also thieving constantly with that expense account and had a massive glow up because of it. If you're better than Ronna McDaniels, congratulations. It's not a success.
No, I'm with you, and it's the biggest joke in the world. Listen, a couple other things. I know you're late and can't keep you too late, but I want to ask you about this SPLC hearing today on the Hill, where the SPLC guy was basically squirming. Your buddy, and I think one of the finest young congressmen we've got, Brandon Gill, he was burning his hide today, and I don't know which senator it was. It may have been who was it? Chip Roy. Basically asked him about his comments about Charlie Kirk, because the SPLC called Charlie Kirk a racist. Basically, they call all Christians racist. And Chip Roy was asking him today, well, why don't y'all have any Islamic groups on your hate list? Why don't you have any LGBTQ groups on your hate list? He couldn't answer that question. And Mac, is this the direction that the Democrat Party's headed, that Christians are going to be, and Catholics and people of faith are going to be the haters, that we're already being called haters? And it's yet the people that are really hating. And I'm like, I hope this lawsuit, I hope this indictment that Patel brought or Blanche brought against the SPLC, I hope that they take it to the ultimate end, and I hope they bankrupt this organization and it never exists ever again on this terra firma of this nation.
But that's my question. Why does it still exist? Over 2 years into a Trump presidency, why does the SPLC still exist? Why do these things still exist? They are responsible for the biggest division in American history. They're responsible for lukewarm civil wars. They are direct utilization tools by the DNC and the Democrats to torture Americans. Why do they still exist? This is my frustration. The SPLC still exists. There's been no effort to take the Clintons in for real question. There's been no effort to find out about the auto pen presidency that Trump so cutely comments on. Where's the work? Where's the reform? It doesn't exist. And yet he's running on having, been so hardline. If Donald Trump was as hardline as the left-wing media makes him out to be, this country would be much safer, but he's not. And I will tell you, young conservatives, they want a hard-right presidency. They don't want a middle ground presidency, and they'll get it. But I just think the candidate they pick for it could surprise people.
Well, I think you just answered my next question, because I think that that was where I was going with some of this at the end tonight, is where the young people in this, and I think you're right. And that's what made Charlie Kirk so attractive to them, because Charlie was hardcore. I mean, he never compromised conservatism. He wasn't perfect, but Charlie stood his ground on the main fundamental issues, and people respect that. And I don't think these Republicans understand that when you wishy-washy and you compromise with evil and you compromise with these socialist policies and these communist policies, when you sit there and stay silent in the face of this Nazi, fascist, communist, Islamic takeover of America, that people are going to respect you. No, they're not. They're going to vomit you out of their mouth, just like Christ said he's going to vomit the lukewarm out of their mouth. You know, you get into a shower and you take a lukewarm shower, it feels horrible. And it feels like you just feel nasty. That's what people have gotten with politics, Mac, because nobody is willing to stand up and stand for something and stand for truth. That's what we're crying for. That's what the country's crying for. And I think that you're right. I think that if we don't get somebody soon, the young people, the left is going to win this battle for their minds, because at least the left stands for something. It's evil as can be, but at least they stand for it, and they don't compromise their evil intentions.
Yeah. Well, no, that's very true. And the hard right presidency that we get eventually, they're going to do things I wouldn't do. They will govern like that because they've had enough. And that's really the indicator here. Young Republicans, we have never lived in a world that didn't hate us. We've never lived in a world where we weren't under siege from left-wing forces, where we didn't have to decide on our careers based on whether or not if we were exposed as conservatives, we'd lose our livelihood. We didn't grow up in equality. We have been oppressed the entire time. So when you sit there and you say major reform will take apart the hate centers against you, and you do nothing, it's enraging. And I think J.D. Vance knows that. He also doesn't want to be president. So let's find somebody who actually wants to do the things they campaign on.
Do you think he's worse than Pence? I've been seeing some comments on X tonight. There's a lot of people that are, I think that they were on the Vance train at first. I think they've jumped off. And there's some pretty biting comments. I'm not going to say that he's a bad vice president, but I think it's showing more and more every day that his intentions are not 28. I don't think that he has any aspirations to run for president.
No.
I think you're right.
No, he doesn't want the job. And that's okay. That's fine. He's more loyal than Pence.
I believe that.
He's more understanding of the world. I don't distrust him. But he also was completely unqualified to be president. And this was a point I made then people disagreed with. He was a half-term senator from Ohio who barely won that, who Trump had to live in Ohio to get him over the threshold. He was in venture capital before that. He's never had a real job aside from when he was in high school. His military career was completely undistinguished. This was not an accomplished person. But Charlie Kirk did what he always did. He dressed him up. He made him look like a Superman. He wasn't Superman, and he didn't want to be president. But the MAGA people decided he should be, and he went along with it. And I think it's very sad.
Do you think it hurts Trump in the end, or do you think that Trump decides to, he's going to survive the next? Look, let me put it like this. Everything's coming down in November. If Trump wins these midterms in November, then all that we're talking about tonight's a moot point, because at this point, 28 is a wide open field at the worst case scenario. If Trump loses in November, then these things we're talking about tonight are going to play and matter long term, because look, everything stops come January 27 if Trump loses the Senate, and if he loses the House. He can survive maybe losing the House and keeping the Senate. He can't survive losing both. And look, it's a real possibility. And this thing in Maine, it scares me tonight. There's something chilling about this Platner guy, that 70%, I don't care how liberal the state is. I mean, it's a pretty, I know people say it's a sort of a purple state. It's a blue state. Maine is gone. We got a friend, Ivan Tuttle, up there. He lives up there, and he has told me some of the evil that goes on. And that whole New England area has just gone full-blown blue. And I'm just telling you, it chills me, though, that 70% of Maine Democrats would believe that Platner was a better candidate, even though Janet Mills has got one foot in the grave with her age, and she's a terrible governor. At least she's not communist. At least. Not outwardly. Not outwardly.
At least she's not. No, she's not a communist. And I invite Democrats to really get to know who they're supporting, because he's crazy. He blames every bad choice on PTSD. And I have to jump off now, actually. But if I would say this.
That's fine.
you're gonna vote for a man who can't take responsibility for any of his bad choices because of PTSD. PTSD is a real thing, but if you have it to that extent, you shouldn't be serving in politics, much less the Senate. Right.
I know you got to go. Appreciate you, sweetie. Thank you for your insight tonight. Love you. I'll see you next week. Okay. God bless, friend. Have a good night. Magdalene Rose, everybody. Good to see her. I want to thank her for being with us. She's got a little one that she has to take care of, and anytime we get for her at night like this, it's a blessing, and she really steps in. I tell you, you're not going to get any better analysis from a young person than that right there. That is why I'm so proud of her. And I tell you what, I've been so thankful every day of my existence here on this show that she agreed to come on the show way back. It was 2018, 2019, I think. We had just started, and she has been a fixture ever since, and I'm just grateful for her. Her and her mom, her whole family is just precious, and that baby. And put some fire in that house for her. Go ahead and put some fire in that house. And we're going to try to get Leslie Millway here on the phone in a minute. And Cleo, you're absolutely right. I think that is what a lot of us believe, that Vance should have disavowed Tucker early on. And I do not believe that this has helped him at all. And I think it's going to come back. It's going to come back to Roos. I'm going to ask a poll question tonight. I'm going to create a poll question. And it's a simple yes and no answer. And I'm going to take J.D. Vance's words. Should the U.S. and Israel's vision and interest be the same? J.D. Vance says no. And I'm going to ask you tonight whether you believe they should be. And I'm just curious to see how you feel about that. But we're going to talk to Leslie here in a minute. But if you got any comments so far, I'm going to take a few minutes before I call Leslie and get your comments. We got a lot of video to play tonight. It's good to see everybody in the house. And good to see all our folks over in Facebook too tonight. And a lot of folks we haven't seen in a while. Good to see y'all. And I tell you, we appreciate it. And as of right now, as I said, as of 9 o'clock tonight, right before we came on, Platner had gotten almost 70, it was like 75-25, running away with it in Maine. Fox is reporting tonight that there are certain people in the Democrat Party that got to the 26th of June to get him off the ticket for the general, that even if he wins tonight, he may not make it in November. I tend to believe that if he got 75% of the vote, the Dems are so evil, and they are absolutely evil. And watching these hypocritical, absolutely pathetic and demonic leaders in the Democrat Party support what this man believes. And I don't have the time to go into a laundry list of it. You can Google his website, and it's right there. He believes every cop should be basically removed. He believes that he believes all white people are racist. He has no distinction between anybody. He doesn't care what your belief is. If you're white, you got white skin, you're bad, and you need to be eradicated. I'm not even going to get into the women's stuff because it's so tawdry and ugly. We can't even talk about some of it on the show tonight because we do try to keep a decorum as to what we talk about these days. But some of the stuff that has come out has just been vile. I mean, it's just been vile stuff. And but more than anything else, he is wanting to install and basically put in a socialist communist agenda and basically remove ICE when there's really no ICE in Maine. I mean, there's no deportations in Maine that I know about. And you know, it's just this whole theater of evil. But to watch Bernie Sanders, Bahana Rowe, whatever his name is, watch AOC, which we shouldn't be surprised by that, but watch Jamie Raskin, watch Hakeem Jeffries, not condemn him, and to watch Elizabeth Warren, not condemn him, to watch all of these Dems that are supposedly I saw Jackie Heinrich from Fox with all these accusations from women about his treatment of them. She asked Hakeem Jeffries, she says, well, aren't you the party that you're to believe all women? Because they sure believe the Kavanaugh accuser. They believe Bosley Ford, who was doing nothing but lying. They believed E. Jean Carroll, who was doing nothing but lying, and who's about to go to prison, by the way, for lying. Bosley Ford should be sitting in the clink with her for what she did to Kavanaugh 5 years ago. And the Dems were all ready to believe any accusation, anything. They were willing to go get a yearbook in Kavanaugh's past to try to prove that this lady was telling the truth. But now, all of a sudden, well, you know, these accusations, there are a lot of questions about them and all this. That is demonic hypocrisy. And that's what makes us sick in the public with politicians. That's what makes us want to vomit when we hear politicians speak. Folks, I was listening to that hearing today a little bit with the SPLC, and there's something about these Dems when they talk. I felt the same way with Obama. I felt the same way with Biden. You just want to go take a bath. You just, in your clothes, you just want to get in a shower and just wash yourself off from the filth that comes from their mouth. And I watched President Trump this weekend deal with Kristen Welker of Meet the Press, and the left-wing media is just tearing him to pieces tonight, just ripping him to pieces. And, he didn't want to take the tough questions. There were not any tough questions. All there was disrespect and rudeness on behalf of Welker. You got Rosie O'Donnell back in the country, another liar, another hypocrite. I'm never going to come back to America as long as Trump is living in the White House. Well, she's back. And she's going to spend the summer here just to run her mouth. These kind of people, they need Jesus. They need Jesus. I don't hate them. But I can't stand to listen to them. And it makes me want to take a bath when I hear them. It's like, the old making your fingers go down on a chalkboard. Whew. That's how I feel. But let me tell you what's scary. James Akers brought it up last night. People are voting for them. People are voting for these morons. They're voting for these left-wing, and I shouldn't say nuts because I'm basically saying the same thing to me that I said to y'all. I don't think they're nuts. I think these people are calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. They know who exactly they're tapping into. They know that they're reading the room. They're reading the country. And they're reading a group of people in this country that have been so disenfranchised and they've been so disgusted with politics. They're willing to listen to an extreme leftist right now that's promising them everything and says, hey, let's tear the system down and rebuild it. And they're willing to listen. 75% is nothing to sneeze at. And I don't see the Dems replacing this guy. I don't. I know some people do. Fox was real giddy about it tonight. Hannity was real giddy. He said, they're going to replace him. And I like Sean. It's nothing against Sean. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think this Dem party has gone so far left and so far extreme. Nothing is off the table with them. Nothing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens and so forth. Let me get some of your comments tonight. Are you in agreement with that? Let's see here. A couple of things. Stephen says, I'm concerned that Trump will bring judgment on himself by trying to tie Israel's hands. Stephen, we're going to talk about that. If Israel stands alone, Stephen, it is biblical, but I would prefer it to be biblical after the church is gone. No offense, Harley. I would hope that day comes that when the church ain't here. I don't want to be around and see what happens to this country if we do this. Stephen, your question about Trump, I'm not going to say he's going to bring judgment. I think that it's not going to bode well. It's not going to bode well for us. I mean, that's just, 96 right now. Let me see what the poll is. We've got 25 votes. Should the U.S. and Israel's vision and interest be the same? 96-4. That's interesting. 4% of you say no. Or you say if they are our friend, then yes. Well, I don't understand what that statement means. Are you saying Israel's not our friend? Who is our friend over in the Middle East? Are you saying Israel's not our friend? I mean, nothing. No offense, but I would like for you to tell me who is our friend in the Middle East. I can tell you it ain't Iran. It ain't Iraq. And whether, and see, this is what I told Magdalene. I'm going to get Leslie on the phone here in a minute. This is what Iran wants. They want division. They want separation. They want separation. And they see any space between America and Israel, they're going to pounce on it. I will say this, and we talked to James Akers about this last night. I believe there is a possibility, and this is why I'm just asking these questions. These are just for discussion. We all can believe what we want to believe, what Trump's doing. There is a possibility, and I brought this up last night to James, that Trump is saying one thing publicly. His vice president may even be saying one thing publicly. But behind the scenes, they're basically giving Israel the okay to do what they need to do to Iran if Iran attacks them. So it could all be just a ruse. It could be all just theater, as the cute people used to like to call it. It could be that. I don't know. I don't think it looks good, though, on the world stage when we do not make it clear that Israel has a right to defend herself. You can't say that with one breath, and then when Israel tries to defend herself, you tell Israel, no, we got a deal in place. You don't have a deal in place if Iran is continuing to attack you. We got bombs going off tonight in southern Iran. America's attacking Iran at this moment. We're talking tonight. The rockets attacks have resumed. Israel is going after Lebanon. It's not so much Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. You cannot allow the Iranian government to shoot hundreds and hundreds of missiles into the northern part of your nation, kill innocent civilians, and sit back for the Americans to say, do we have your permission to shoot back? That's crap. Nobody in their right mind would say that you don't have a right to do that. So I don't know. That's my only question. And there is a possibility that that's what's happening here. And if it is, then, then great, because that means Trump hadn't lost his mind. It's hard to read, and I guess the next few weeks are going to play this out. But I've been reading a lot of articles in the last few days. I read one tonight in the World Israel Press that there is a growing rift between Washington and Jerusalem. There is a growing rift between Bibi and Trump. Whether that's true or not is remaining to be seen. And Bibi, and there's a lot of statements being made by the Israeli government. They're saying, look, we got to protect our own interests. We just do. And J.D. Vance out there saying, well, our interest is not the same as Israel's. Well, explain to me which ones are not. Which ones are not? We're both fighting the same enemy. We're both fighting the same enemy. So anyway, that's how I feel about that. And I think most people can understand that. So, Lori, to answer your question about them being our friend, I don't know who else is our friend other than that. Other than them. Cleo says, I think Iran is waiting for Trump's term to be over. Regimes like that think long term. The West wants everything in 5 minutes, and I agree with that. It's 94-6 now with 31 votes. 6% of you say we don't need to have the same interests as Israel. Okay, well, you can believe that if you like. Let's get Leslie on the phone, and we're going to talk about some other things we heard tonight. We're grateful to Leslie Milwee is on the phone. How are you, dear? Good to see you tonight.
Oh, you too.
Well, we brought you on live, and we just had Magdalene leave us for the last few minutes, and couldn't ask for a better late night co-host than Leslie Milwee, the one and only. I'll start off with the nut in Maine tonight. Can you believe 70% of Maine Democrats went Nazi? They went Nazi.
73% of the people have said that's a good idea. Blows me away. It's very disheartening. I don't think I've done this in years and years. I had not one but 2 Krispy Kreme donuts in sadness. So that's unlike me, but that's how bad I think this is.
Oh, my Lord. So you eat Krispy Kreme donuts for sorrow for him winning?
And, I know Susan Collins can pull tricks out of the hat, but, all the bad stuff that's out there about him, and he's still getting this kind of support.
Unreal.
How can that be?
It's unreal. Well, I think the lady, we played the video last night, there was a lady that they interviewed, and they asked her, they said, well, if this was an Israel tattoo on his chest instead of a Nazi tattoo, would you feel the same? Oh, she said, oh, no, I wouldn't vote for him if he had the Israel tattoo because he'd be supporting genocide. That's how nutty.
Yeah.
That's how nutty these voters are, Leslie. That's what scares me. That's what scares me.
And I saw some similar ones that, some reporter addressed the sexual assaults. And as you know, this is near and dear to my heart because having lived through that myself, I'm just amazed that a woman it's bona fide. We don't have 1 or 2 women. There are multitudes, and even the girlfriends that didn't even talk about the sexual assault or abuse, talked about just what a mean, evil person he was. He lacks moral character. The way he treats women, he's obviously got a complex, and that blows me away when I see women support that. Not unlike Bill Clinton, or at least Bill Clinton's nice when he's insulting somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
Platner is just a mean guy. He's just a horrible, hateful, shrill guy, and I don't get it.
Let me ask you this. I asked Magdalene this. I'll ask you this. How did we get here that a candidate like this, because see, I expected him to win tonight, but what I didn't expect when I started seeing these numbers come in, when you go 73%, my friend, that is going to make it hard for the Democrats to come up and say, okay, he's too extreme, we can't put him on the ticket. I know the fact that this Democrat Party's gone so far left and evil that they're going to let him run in November against her. And I'm not saying that she's going to walk in this. This is going to be a tough race for her to win because there's people in Maine that are all in with this communist push. Are they not?
Oh, they are. And, it's like California. I think you have to look at Maine and maybe Vermont, a few of these really live on your own terms kind of states. Maybe that isn't crazy to them, but the original question you asked, how did we get here? I think this started slowly. It's the old frog in the pot of water, boiling. We started with AOC, and she was one of those radical, well, it started with Obama, and then you got AOC and Tlaib and all of these, Presley, all of these psycho jihadist kind of people, and we normalized it. We have allowed that to be normalized. That is on us a little bit, that we didn't push back harder. I think we are now. We're doing that with the transgender and some of these DEI things. But you know what? Shame on us for allowing this to boil and percolate for 10 years until it's acceptable.
Well, my brother told me back on July the 26th of 2015, he said this is open to Pandora's box when we approve same-sex marriage. He said it's going to lead to so many other things. And he said it's a genie out of a bottle. And he said once it gets out, it is going to be hard to put it back in. And that's exactly what's happened. But Leslie, what I'm concerned about are people. You mentioned Bill Clinton, and people, look, I've got no respect for the Clintons whatsoever. But it does make you wonder how that side of the Democrat Party has remained silent in the face of all this stuff. because you would think that they would at least see the evil in this and put a stop to this. Look, John Fetterman, he acts like a Republican. John Fetterman should just change parties because he sounds he sounds more wise to me than most Republicans do.
Well, he's gifted with, which I never saw, and maybe I don't think he had it much when he was running, because honestly, he was fighting so many health issues from his stroke. But, he's become the common sense from both parties. He's not radical.
Yes.
He's willing to talk to everyone, no matter what your affiliation. I mean, I think if nothing else, this last year has probably been a big awakening for him as to what kind of reality these people live in. I mean, he calls them out, and I love his unabashed support of Israel too. I mean, that's so important. It's amazing. But as far as the Clintons, I'll tell you one thing that I have noticed that I think has happened in that is the fact that the Clintons are so irrelevant in Democratic politics and have been for a while. Every time they try to rear their head and say something or make some kind of a comment or a statement, they are shot down to the ground. And part of me loves that. But then a part of me says at least they could be relatively moderate on some things. Because we don't have that now. That is not the left anymore.
No,
that is not the Democratic Party. No. So I think that's why they're getting shut down. Everybody says, oh, they're old guard. Nobody wants them in their, in their camp. Well, they don't want them in their camp because they're not psycho enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. I think that's one reason why Obama's not relevant. I mean, would you have ever imagined 10 years ago that Obama would be totally irrelevant?
No. And he's trying to be relevant, and just every time he comes into the foray of stuff, he just sticks his foot deeper in his mouth, and Michelle too.
Yeah, he does.
But, I want to ask you this on this same line of thought. Magdalene was telling me something tonight, and I'd not really thought about this, and she talked to the campaign manager with Steve Hilton, and also some people with Spencer Pratt. Kevin McCartney has been a huge help to both Hilton and Pratt out there, but the one thing that the RNC nationally has not done, they've not lifted a finger to help either candidate. Spencer Pratt needed some legal help with this still. And he reached out to the RNC through McCartney to say, look, we need your lawyers. We need lawyers to come out here and help us fight this still. They wouldn't do it. Hilton has basically said he's gotten zilch from the RNC. Zilch. And thank God, we congratulate Hilton for being number 2 now. He's going to be at least in the general in November. It's going to be a tough road to hoe. He's going to have a lot of uphill climbing. But Leslie, if the Republicans are not going to get behind their own, everything me and you're talking about, we're just wasting our breath, honestly. Because, I mean, while we're fighting for a party that they don't care, they're just sitting there letting all this steamroll over the country, what you just mentioned a while ago. And if there's nowhere for people to go other than the communists and these young people to go, they're going to go to the communists. They're going to go to these fascists. They're going to go to the AOCs. They're going to go to the socialists that are offering them the world and offering them this utopia, free health care, and this and that and the other. And we're going to get these big bad ICE agents off the street. They're going to go to this because they've got nowhere to go with the Republicans. And the Republicans are doing this very thing. They can't even support their own people.
I know. Well, I think that the Republicans probably aren't diving into that. Hilton or, for one thing, I think Hilton won. I think he beat Bashara.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. But Sarah, I have no doubt. Spencer Pratt beat Rahman. There's no question about that. What do you do about it? Does it drag out? How long? Maybe the Republicans are saying, hey, we don't want to spend X dollars. We're going to have to really battle in, the midterms. I guess on some level I get it, but yes, I mean, Spencer Pratt is an up-and-comer. This doesn't have to be his first foray out into politics. This kid is articulate. He's smart. He's common sense. They better grab on to this kid and they better help him and mold him. And that's the way I look at it. I think he's just a fabulous if he had the support. But I think they think it's a losing battle and they're throwing good money after bad.
Well, and Magdalene made the point, and I think it was a well-spoken point. This kid is so smart. She was just sharp as a tack tonight, as she always is. And she made a great point about Massey. She said that the Republicans had no problem throwing millions and millions and millions of dollars to get rid of a scumbag that they probably didn't need to do much to get him defeated anyway. But they wouldn't even offer $1 to Pratt or to Hilton out in California, which I think is more important because California has got a lot of pull in the country. It's one of the biggest states in the union. What would happen if California went red, buddy? Can you imagine the earthquake, the political earthquake that would shake this country if the Republicans woke up November morning and on these elections and the 55 electoral votes were not just all automatically put in the Democrats' policy and pocket? That would change. It would change history in this country, my friend. It would change it.
And that's why they have to do it, because if that were to happen, the Democrats would never win another presidential election.
Come on.
Ever. So that is why they must, at all costs, make sure it doesn't happen. And we saw it unfold. I mean, you and I talked about this last week. I really didn't think Spencer Pratt was going to get the boot. I thought it would be Karen Bass. I have to say, I'm kind of stunned that they are, and that people allow it, that they are promoting that. I think they're depending on the fact that time is going to be their friend, and they are going to have a new mayor by the time all this is said and done. And we know it's going to be Karen Bass now. I'm 80% sure of that. Ramen does have the personality of a ramen noodle. So yeah, I mean, when she speaks, it's as bad as Karen Bass is. I think that's one reason why Pratt did so well is because he's normal. He's a normal
guy,
person talking. And I don't even think Steve Hilton is that normal just from the fact that he is British. I know he's a U.S. citizen now, but I think he does have passion and everything, but there's just a confidence of common sense that Pratt has that I haven't seen since maybe Trump. I don't know. It's just he's normal. And he loves his family. And yeah, he says, I'm an actor. So what? That's how I make my living. But my life, my home, my family, that's what's important to me. And that should resonate to so many people. I really did think that it would be those two, and that with the help of all those Chad Bianco votes, it was still going to be a long shot, but I thought, maybe that'll help Steve Hilton with Bianco. Maybe Pratt could have pulled it off. I don't know.
Do you think
it's a shame?
Do you think we made a mistake with replacing McCartney as House Speaker?
Well, who knows what goes on behind the scenes. We were talking about this at work today, how 10% of the people do 90% of the work and the heavy lifting, and they never are brought to the forefront or overly admired. I mean, they're known as hard workers and those who get things done. I think Kevin McCartney was like that. I think he was in a losing situation because of the failures. Some of them could possibly be blamed on him. A lot of them related to Obama and Trump coming up and all of those things. I think Johnson's done a good job. I really do. I don't know, though. I don't think Johnson is as forceful as Kevin McCarthy is. So what do you think?
I think McCartney with Trump I think would have been a lethal team. I think
Maybe so.
I think Matt Gaetz proved to be a absolute pathetic traitor
Idiot.
and loser.
I know.
He was the
I know.
reason that the whole thing came up against McCartney. And we find out we all were fools. I was a fool to believe that Matt Gaetz had the country's best interest at heart, because I was actually at the time all this happened, it was during the Biden time, and I felt like that perhaps that he was making the right call, because I was frustrated with McCartney. But I think what you just said is something that we probably were blinded to, that he was powerless because of the situation with the country, and with Biden's power and whatever was going on with the country. People were wanting him to just, I guess, I don't know what they wanted him to do. And I think that I think we all learned a lesson. But what we've had happen is that, as you said, Mike Johnson, while he may be a good man, I don't think he's done any better than McCartney had done, and I don't think that he's been as forceful as he needs to be. And then you've got this pathetic loser in Thune that's running the Senate, and I just think McCartney would have been a good force to push Thune to act more than Johnson. And Johnson, that's just my opinion, and I think we made a great mistake, and I'm with Magdalene on this. I think we made a terrible mistake in what we did, and I think we all sort of went along with it because of Matt Gaetz, who has turned out to be nothing but an anti-Semitic trope and a complete loser with a losing show that he don't even have anymore, I don't think. People don't listen to this. He's just horrible. Nothing but he's a pathetic loser. Pathetic.
He is, and I think, I look at those that aligned with him, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and those people.
Exactly.
They have been such a huge disappointment that I had faith in, because they said all the right things and they responded accordingly. But, when the rubber met the road, they were pathetic. And I think Matt Gaetz is probably one of my most disappointing people that I've ever followed, at least in this century, that I thought would come through that did not. She's another one. I think Nancy Mace has been off the rails.
Well, she didn't even finish in 5th place tonight. I mean, she ran for governor. It was not even, she wasn't even on the top 3. And Lindsey Graham, of course, he won in South Carolina. And there's some races out west. But I want to ask you a question about California, then I want to ask you about Israel tonight and these Iran strikes. Do you think the federal government should step in and declare this election halted, just like they did in 2000, when we had questions about the hanging chads and things of that nature? Ultimately wound up at the Supreme Court. I think California is worth fighting for. I think LA is worth fighting for. I cannot believe that the people of LA wants 2 Democrats at the top of that ticket running in November, with the situation that happened to them a year ago in January 25 of this past year with these fires. And was it 24 or 25? I think it was this past 25. Year. Yeah, it was 25. It was just 6 months ago. And
a year and a half ago.
Ago. That's 24. Yeah. So I cannot believe that they would want that. I just do not believe that they would want the same leaders that allowed their city to burn down, Leslie. I just don't. Maybe I'm naive. This is what scares me with our country tonight. If this is what voters want, if this is what Californians want, if this is what the people up in Maine want, if this is what the New Yorkers wanted with Mandami, I mean, there ain't much me and Leslie Mill we can do. We can sit here and talk, and we can banter this back and forth as friends and tell the country, look, you don't want communism, you don't want socialism. But I tell you what, if they're, I hate to use this phrase tonight, if they're hell bent on wanting it, there ain't much you can do about it, because that seems to be what the country wants right now. And it's scary. It's scary. Well, I'm not saying a majority does, but there is a portion of this country that does.
They do. And I mean, there's a larger group that felt that way than 5 years ago. That's what's scary. It's taken a big leap toward communism, socialism. There's no question. I mean, Bernie Sanders has been hawking that philosophy for 25 or 30 years, but yet it's just really taking off. I think everybody kind of looked at him. Maybe he was a little kooky, but he was in the right state for that and kind of different. I think this is kind of a different scenario. This is incredibly different in the fact that, like you mentioned, the young people, you take an uneducated voter, and even if they are relatively educated and know a little, all they know is, I'm living in mom and dad's basement. I'm making minimum wage. I can't survive on my own. I can't afford a car. I can't afford a house. And of course, I smoke pot 4 out of 5 days. And, you know, I'm kind of a space cadet, but I'm not really liberal. But hey, if they're going to give me these things, I'm getting ready to turn 26 and get kicked off the parents' insurance. I need to do something. And these things, these freebies, you know, it's like freedom. It's never free. Someone has to pay the piper for that, whether it's them, whether it's us, the government, an outside entity. Nothing is free. Nothing. And these poor kids that are 25 or 30, they don't get that because they can't. Well, I think to some degree they see that they can't live as well as their parents. They would have to be blind not to think that. Mom and dad say, we bought this house when we were 24, and he's looking at them and he's 30 and works at Taco Bell. You know, what is he supposed to think? He's got a master's in art artifacts, and he can't understand what's going wrong in his life. Maybe that's the answer. How do we get to those people? That's my question.
That's a good question.
How do you
get
to that?
You're going to have, I tell you one thing I think, and Magdalene sort of mentioned this earlier tonight too, is that these young people are looking for a strong leadership, strong right conservatives. And that's why Charlie Kirk, Leslie, was so popular among them, because he stood tall and stood strong for conservative values. He didn't fluctuate. And this wishy-washy Republican version of politics, these young people are vomiting that out. They are vomiting it out. They want to hear a voice, somebody that's going to stand up and fight.
Absolutely.
And they don't get it. They're not getting it from anybody, right or left.
I know. And Charlie is a greatly missed voice. I mean, he was important then. And he is important now because we have a vacuum that he would fill that we cannot fill with any that I see. I am glad to see people like Dan Bongino, but you know, he's 50 something. And some of these other people, that's not old. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there was something magical about a 25-year-old listening to 25-year-old Charlie Kirk or 30-year-old Charlie Kirk. Those are magical things because they're relatable. He's my age. This is what he says, the Bible says about family and values and morals, and have more children than you can afford. And all of these things resonated because, you know what? We're wired to have a relationship with God.
Yes, we are. Buddy.
And when somebody can share that on a relatable level, it's incredibly powerful. And I sure wish we would have some up-and-comers like that could really take over the mantle. I don't see any right on the horizon. And in fact, we're losing voices. Like, we could depend on, even 5 years ago, the Tucker Carlsons, the Megyn Kellys, the Candace Owens to some extent. We could rely on these as relatively normal. They would go off the rails occasionally, but we always thought they had our best interest and the interest of people at heart. They didn't. It was all about me.
So true. No, it's so true. We got about 15, 20 more minutes with you. I want to change subjects with you a little bit tonight. We'll next show we'll talk about the SPLC more, but I wanted to ask you about something that's developing tonight. Of course, for those that have joined us late, the United States has been attacking tonight. There have been missiles going off, bombs going off in southern Iran. It's in retaliation to the Iranians shooting down one of their drones, shooting down one of their helicopters. Thank God nobody was hurt or injured in that crash. Trump responded. Israel's been responding, but there has been several stories in the Jerusalem press, and even some over here, that there is a growing division, Leslie, between Trump and Bibi. And the bottom line is, and I think we may have talked about this last week, but it just seems to keep coming, the circle keeps coming back to that when Israel is attacked by Iran, America wants Israel to stop. And, you know, speaking of, I'm not calling him your old buddy, but let's just say the individual in your life that is a scumbag, he did the same thing during his administration. Bush Jr. did it. Clinton did it. Bush Jr. did it. Obama certainly did it. Biden did it. Carter did it. Reagan did it at times. Bush Sr. definitely did it. And why is it that the American presidents, all the way back to Reagan, have never again condemned the Arab world when they attack Israel, but they always want Israel to show restraint when it's the bombs hitting the northern cities of Israel and killing civilians, instead of them condemning the Iranian missiles that do the killing. And that's bothering me tonight, and I'm going to tell you something. This is how I look at it. I go back to that phone call, and I gave President Trump the benefit of the doubt. I said, well, maybe it was a leak call, maybe it didn't actually happen. And I'm okay with the fact that world leaders can exchange tough words with each other. But in this situation, the whole thing was about he was upset that Israel went after Hezbollah when there was a peace deal in place. Leslie, there's no peace deal in place. If Iran is still attacking us tonight and we're still attacking Iran, no offense, I'm just a South Georgia boy. I just look at these things sort of common sense. You don't have a peace deal in plan, Mr. President. They're killing civilians, and Israel's got a right to defend herself. And the F-bombs that you dropped on Bibi, maybe you need to be dropping them on the mullahs instead of dropping it on Bibi. And that's how I feel about it. And I know there's a lot of people that don't feel that way, and that's okay, because we got almost 8% tonight that believes that our interest should not be the same as Israel, like J.D. Vance is out there saying tonight. But there is a growing rift. I want you to chime in on this. What's your thoughts about this? Because I think it does not bode well for either country that we're apart on this. We've got to be together. We got the same enemy, buddy. We got the same enemy.
I know. And it's so funny that you brought this up, because I was reading my Bible and having my quiet time last night, and I'm thinking about this because I know everything is about to crack and we're about to come off the rails like what happened today. I just had a gut feeling that, oh no, this is, and then I saw JD talk a little bit and I thought, we're not all on the same page here. The one thing that I keep going back that kept popping in my mind over and over, and you named all those presidents, they did not have the spirit for Israel that you and I have.
That's true.
They did not understand the gravity of the situation of supporting God's chosen people. And when you get in the weeds there and things go off like that, I think it goes back to that. I'm not saying they're not Christian. I'm not saying Trump's not a Christian. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying they do not look at Israel the way you and I do, Chris, and many other people. And that was my takeaway from my reading. And I was, reading about Moses and the people and, wandering in the desert, and they just didn't get it. And I thought, we're kind of like that now. It's just like we don't get it. We don't understand how severe things are for Israel. They're on the brink of not being a nation. We're on the brink of maybe having a war, and that's horrible, but it's not our demise, and it is theirs.
Yeah. Do you think Trump's being advised wrongly with this, or do you think that he's something's happened? Amir Safari He's a Jewish theologian, and me and him see eye to eye on most things. There's a few minor little differences, but I believe that he's got a heart for Israel, and he's biblically sound for the most part. And again, our disagreements are not big; they're just perspective. But he said something recently about Trump's trip to China. And he said that he noticed that there was a change in Trump's demeanor to Israel when he got back from that trip with Z. Do you think that there is something bigger going on with our president? Is he being advised wrong? But then I'm going to throw this at you as well. Do you think this is all a ruse? And what I mean by that is, do you think that what we're hearing publicly is not necessarily what is being said privately, even though Trump confirmed that him and Bibi had harsh words on the phone with each other last week or 2 weeks ago? Do you think that there's something sort of behind the scenes that the Trump administration is sort of giving them a wink and saying, do what you got to do? We're going to publicly condemn you and publicly blow you to pieces, but it's okay with us if you blow the Iranians out of the water. Where do you fall on this? Because any of those scenarios could be true.
Yeah, and gets back to what you and I have said 100 times in the past. I always feel like Trump is ahead on the chessboard, and good luck catching up to those 2 or 3 extra moves. Hopefully that's the case. I'm always amazed at the outcomes of some of these situations that you think are lost and hopeless, and Trump is not a loser. He does not lose well, nor does he ever even take on that persona. So, the flip side of that, the dark side of that would be, is he just wanting to get this war over and us to move forward and kind of try to save the midterms or bring down gas prices? What is the motive? And both of those things could be correct. It could be all of the above. It's not likely, but it's very possible. Trump is far more intelligent than me or Stephen A. Smith.
I'll agree.
Yeah. He went off on Trump about his IQ, and I'm like,
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
Get real.
Get real. Well, these same Democrats, these same people that are going off on him about that, they never went off on Obama like that. They never went off with Bill Clinton. All presidents go to sporting events. All presidents do. It's nothing new. So what? If they got nothing else to complain about, then that just shows the shallowness. Speaking of complaining and shallowness and demons, how about Kristen Welker giving her lunch handed to her at this? Didn't you enjoy that? I enjoyed watching Trump get up and walk off. I thought it was grand. Now, the left-wing media is losing their lunch over tonight, but I thought it was pretty far out myself.
It was awesome, and then he crunched and walked on the microphone that he threw down, and I just thought that was delicious. That is the best way. That is right up there with my Krispy Kreme donuts. I mean, that brought me so much pleasure to watch that. It's the little things in life, right? I mean,
little things in life, Millie. Little things in life.
That was wonderful. She was whining and I came here a long way.
Such entitlement. Don't these arrogant people just make you want to puke? This arrogance in this media that they think they're entitled. I don't know if people realize this or not. There's nothing in the Constitution, nothing that requires Trump to even have a press conference. Yeah, I think people think that the press is right, and they say if he don't do it, it's not freedom of the press. Joe Biden would have never went on Fox News. He never did in 4 years. Joe Biden would not have anybody interview him. Jill wouldn't have allowed it, that challenged him on his health, his mental capacity, or anything like that. Trump puts himself out to these people every single day. And we had a dear friend this morning, or last night, and Jenny Castellanova, and she made a statement, and I tend to agree with this. If I was Trump, I wouldn't give these people the time of day. You know what? I'll just give you a movie way back in the day. It was called Walking Tall. And I don't want to go through the whole movie, but Buford Pusser, who was actually a true sheriff in Western Tennessee. I went to his museum here a few years ago, and they killed his wife and ultimately killed him for standing up for law. But one of the things that he did when he took office as sheriff, he had a press, and he had officials that were basically standing in the way of law. And he went and got the law out, and he said, you know something? I have the right to choose where you do your thing and do your job. And he put him in the bathroom. He put him in the bathroom, and he said, this is what I think of your decisions. If I was Trump, you know what I'd do? I would make the press hold their press conferences from the toilet, because that's about what their news is tonight.
Well, it is, and it's been like this for a long time. We just didn't know because we were given 3 or 4 or 5 channels, if you want to be very gracious and include NPR and PBS.
That's true.
And that's all we had since the beginning of television and radio. That was everything that was offered to us. We had to eat it or prove otherwise, and most of us didn't have the ability to do that. And I think in his mind, he just loves calling these people out. I think he got great pleasure in watching Scott Pelley have a meltdown these last few days. I think the Kristen Welker, the Leslie Stalls, he delights in and seeing that happen, because they are owed it. And I know that can be petty. I know that because I do the same thing sometimes, of course, on a much less grand scale. But I can do that too. That's our ego. That's our selfishness coming out. I told you so. Look what you did. You got caught, blah, blah, blah. And I get it, because I'm human, and I get it. It's like they expect this man to not have a human bone in his body.
I'll agree. Well, and I think that if you think about it, he's ended the careers of Costa. He's ended the careers of MS Now, Don Lemon. There's a lot of these personalities that were mainstream news that is thanks to Trump. They're no longer even out there, and people not listening to their podcasts except their left-wing Looney Tune fans. But I think that ABC is $15 million broker in the pocketbook because of him. And if MSNBC and NBC don't watch it, they're going to be the same. Because he's going to sue him, Leslie. And this congresswoman that got on MS Now and claimed that Trump was guilty of rape, I would be getting me a lawyer, and I'd be lawyering up hard. And he's going to sue her. And I'm telling you, he needs to. And I pray that every dollar that Jean Carroll sued him for, she's never going to see a dollar of it, he turns and gets every bit of that back from her. Somebody needs to stand up to these people. Bosley Ford needs to be sued by Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole bunch.
Absolutely.
And these slanderers and these liars, and it needs to send a message. This is unacceptable behavior in a civilized society. You cannot do this. And freedom of the press does not mean doing the things this press in America does. I hate to tell them, you have a responsibility. I remember the movie Absence of Malice, and I remember Wilford Brimley telling Sally Field, who played a reporter, and they got their hand in a cookie jar and basically destroyed themselves. And he told her, he said, freedom of the press is a crazy thing. He said, we hope that you press people can be responsible. If you're not a whole lot we can do to you. But just remember that, you're destroying your credibility with the American public, and you're going to destroy yourself doing this. And that's what they've done, Leslie. I don't think people believe a thing that comes out of the press's mouth. And if Kristen Welker thinks that was a good look for her network and she's a fool. She's just a plain fool.
And I think Scott Pelley, I thought surely it wasn't as bad as it sounded on the radio in person. So I went back tonight and I watched that on YouTube, his blubbering tears and his pathetic, it's about me. I'm in my boat sailing, in my $200,000 catamaran and I'm sad. I'm like, what do these people even remotely think is relatable to you on any level?
Nothing.
I mean,
nothing. Nothing at all.
That is so pathetic. I almost felt sorry for him. I thought, you are so pathetically sad that I feel for you because you are so out of touch with reality. And normal people that shop at Walmart every day and have to pay $2,000 a month for daycare. You don't get it.
No, they
never
don't.
have, never will. So
one final question, and I'll let you go tonight. So thankful that you came on. We always have a good discussion, and I'll get you back on very soon, maybe this week even. But what's your thoughts about J.D. Vance and his comments about Israel? We'll wrap it up on this. Do you believe, and I'll ask you the question we got in the poll tonight, do you believe that our interest in Israel needs to be the same? Because I do. I believe that they do, and J.D. out there telling the world that they don't, I don't think is a good look for our country. And I think that it doesn't mean that we have to agree. When I say interest, and I know there are people that are probably voting against that, thinking, well, that means that we agree with everything Israel does. That has nothing to do with it. But when it comes to terrorism and it comes to what we're involved in with them right now, we had better be on the same page. And I just think it's not good. And Magdalene she made an interesting point. She said she don't think he wants to be president in 28. Do you hold that view? Because I tend to believe that that's true.
I have heard him speak a few times about not really the burden, but the extra responsibility with a fourth child and all of these things. I think you and I would agree that even if he stepped back for a while, JD will be successful at anything that he chooses to do. I think that was a really important thing that he said, only in the fact that, to me, it broke with most of the administration. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like he was aligning to Rubio or Trump or...
Okay.
Now, did I misinterpret that? Am I reading too much into it? Maybe. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe I'll let the chips fall where they may on that. I agree with you, but that's a gray line. What exactly do you mean when you say interest? Is it about terrorism? Absolutely. We should be 110% aligned. Is it about how to bring back an economy or open the Strait of Hormuz, or I don't know. What's good for them is maybe not for us and vice versa. So who makes that decision? I guess ultimately Bibi and Trump and Marco and J.D. Vance and all these smart people get in a room and they cogitate till it comes out. I'd say... I'm just throwing this out there. This is a great question. I had never really thought about it much just from what I saw JD say. I'm going to say we should be 80% aligned.
Okay.
I think they have a different culture. I think they have a different need. They're constantly being threatened to be blown off the face of the earth. That should be like just a no-brainer that we support them 100% in that. But then you get into the weeds after that.
Well, their economies, and I'll give you this. I don't expect the American government to be 100% lock and step with every decision that Israel makes, no more than we should expect Israel to be lock and step with every decision we make. And I will say that the intangible of what you just said is this. It's the American leadership. Leslie, we're going to wind up one day, again, with a Joe Biden type president. We just are. It's just the cycles. It's election cycles. I hope we don't see what we saw the last 4 years ever again. But the fact of the matter is, watching the landscape of this country, watching these voters in Maine tonight, 73% of the Democrat voters in Maine vote for a Nazi, a rabid, radical, demonic, radicalized demon, and do it without pause, and listening to the voters talk, and watching this anti-Semitic tropes, these anti-Semitic voices get louder and louder and louder. and more people question Israel's existence, question why we support Israel. And then I read the newspapers in Israel this week and even today, and the feeling among the Israeli government is, look, if we got to go alone, we're not going to let Iran push us around, and we're not going to let them get a nuke. And if we have to bomb the living, out of Iran, we're going to do it. If America don't like it, America can pound sand. Now, we Americans may not like to hear that, but I ask you a question as a leave. Do you think for a second that if this scenario would have happened to us, where let's just say that Israel and Mexico was again in a peace deal, okay? And Mexico had done some bad things to Israel, but we had sort of sided that Israel had called on us and said, hey, can you help us deal with Mexico? Because the actually geographics of that's the same, because Iran's their neighbor, Mexico's our neighbor.
Right.
But let's just say that our good old-fashioned neighbor, a group of cartels, started shooting missiles into San Antonio, Texas, or shooting missiles into southern Texas, southern New Mexico, southern Arizona. Do you think for 1 second that Bibi Netanyahu would, or let's just say JD or President Trump would get on the television and say, well, I don't think our interests align with Israel, and allow the cartels of Mexico to do that without retaliation? Absolutely not.
No, there's no way.
No.
And that's where you have to have that caveat, is what we see, not really what's happening, because I know that Trump and Bibi are 100% on the same page that there can be no nuclear material, period, no weapon in Iran. That is 100%, I think, the game that they try to act like it's, not that big of a deal. That is Trump's main kahuna. And I think it's Bibi's too, because if they get it, it's their annihilation. It might not be our annihilation, but it will be theirs.
It will be theirs. And that's what I'm saying. Look, and I want to make it clear, I'm an American. I love my country. My first allegiance is to America, as long as our leadership is following God. And if our leadership does not follow God, my allegiance is to God first. It's not America first. And I hear all these America first people out there talking about, we got to be America first. No, we need to be God first. We better be God first. And regardless, and I'm not even Israel first. Look, I love the nation of Israel. I know that, you mentioned the Bible part of this a while ago. We are Bible people. Me and your faith people. We understand what the Bible says about her future. Her immediate future, her future. She's going to be restored. But there's going to be a lot of problems for her. And she is going to be left alone here at the end, in the end times. And the Great Tribulation period, she will have nowhere to turn. Nowhere, including America. And it's prophetic what's happening. And that's why we need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, unlike we've ever prayed for it. Because we're really praying for the soon return of Jesus when we do. But it just, I guess, watching it play out in real time, it's troubling. I mean, it really is troubling to see her in a place that she's got nowhere to turn to for help. Because, Leslie, there's a lot of nations that would want her life off this planet in a second.
Of course,
and we get poor leadership here, and we may jump into that fray, and that's going to be the death of this country if we do. I'll let you wrap this up.
No, I was going to say, and we need to understand that from our biblical perspective and their religion of Islam, the two not only do not mesh and make sense together, their whole destruction is against the Jews. That is their main force of pushing their evil. Not just them. I mean, we're all infidels in their eyes. They're worse. What they did in October several years ago is so horrible. There's so many horrible things about it that these people have taken up for. And I'm so sick of hearing about the genocide, because these people were attacked. They were absolutely, I mean, it would be equivalent to what, 100,000, 200,000 people dying in this country?
At least that many here, yes.
And so for us to look at that and normalize it in any way, it gets back to that normalization of Graham Platner and all that. I'm sorry, that there is nothing normal about that. Don't ever let that be said out loud without defending God, because that's what it is. I think he looks demonic. I feel a cold chill when I look at him, honest to goodness. He makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
And I mean, truly, there aren't a lot of people like that you can look at them and you can say, that person is evil.
Yeah.
They have the look of evil, demonic look. And if you look at him in his eyes, that's what I feel like. And I just don't understand how millions of people, I don't know, there aren't millions of people up there, hundreds of thousands of people that voted for him, or tens of thousands. And that is alarming on any level, because do you think he's going to, if he does get elected, he is going to be so anti-Israel? You're just adding fuel to that fire.
Another voice of many anti-Israel votes in Congress already. Well, buddy, it's been grateful. Listen, I didn't even talk about something tonight. Next time we're going to talk, I'm going to talk about this Anthony Carmela verdict tonight. 35 years, and I think I would have gave him the chair for what he did. But the protests are not for the victim. The protests are for the one that did the killing. That the country in Texas, that McTown is protesting the verdict. Where have we gotten in the society? And we're going to talk about that next time.
We've got to.
We're calling evil good and good evil, are we not?
And he's, he's 17, 18 years old now. He can serve as little as 15 to 16 years.
That's all we
He will be out on the street as a young, angry man, and that's what scares me. You think he's going to get better in there, or get have a come to Jesus meeting?
No.
It's not likely.
Unless Jesus himself appears to him, and that's what we have to pray for him. But I think that all the courts did tonight was, again, put a Band-Aid on it for 17 years, and somebody will deal with that kid in the legal system 17 years from now. And another family likely will suffer the pain unless he, as you said, finds Christ in his heart, and that's what we have to pray for. But that's the state of our country, and that's a dangerous place that we're in tonight. And, that's for another discussion for another time, friend. Listen, God bless you. Okay. Good night. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. All right, sweetie. Okay, bless you now. Good night. Leslie Milwee, everybody. I want to thank her for being with us. It's 10:42 in the Central Time Zone, 11:42 in the East. We are grateful for all of you being with us tonight, and grateful for that. And Cleo says Rubio's words count for more as an insight to Trump's thinking. I agree with that, and I think Rubio would make a great president. My vote, if I had to put my ticket out in 28, Rubio and DeSantis would be my top two candidates. I'd love to see a Rubio-DeSantis ticket myself, but that remains to be seen. We got to get through 26 first. We got to get through these midterms first, because I got a feeling if we don't get through these midterms, there may not be a 28, because Trump's going to be basically neutralized by all these hearings, and God knows what these godless Dems are going to try to do. And it's going to be sad. It really will be sad. Good to see all you folks over on Facebook tonight. And if you got any questions, 92-8, we've had 52 of you vote in the poll. Should the U.S. and Israel's vision and interest be the same? And I'm going to end that poll at this moment, because we're going to pick up some of this. So I'll just let that poll stand. If you're in the audience and you were one of the ones that said our interests should not be the same, please feel free to tell me why. And I think Leslie made a great point. It's how you define interest. And when it comes to this terrorism situation, folks, we better have the same interests as Israel, because the people that are trying to kill her and push her into the sea are the same people that would drop a nuke bomb in Washington. And they would drop a nuke bomb on L.A. or New York or any of these big cities. Wouldn't think twice about it if they had the power to do it. But, again, I guess it's how you define interest. And if some of you think, well, that means that we've got to go lock and step with them, that's not what we asked. We were asking, should our vision be the same? And I believe it should. I would be part of the 92% that voted yes, it should. But 8% of you said no. So I'm just curious if there's anybody out there that wants to chime in. We're not going to whack you. We'll take your thoughts. I want to thank Magdalene, Rose, and Leslie tonight. I really do. Harley, he was not. He may have been charged as an adult. Yeah, he was, but 35 years for murder. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, honestly, that should have been a life sentence tonight. That should have been a life sentence tonight. And all that's done is postpone the inevitable. And I got one video. I want to play one video. We don't have time to play all the videos tonight I had a bunch of them. We'll probably play them Thursday night if we're here. This is I think one of the mothers that was in the crowd protesting the verdict tonight. I want you to listen to what she has to say closely. Listen to what she's got to say.
What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do?
Let me tell you what you tell them, ma'am. Let me tell you what you tell them. You tell them that murder is wrong. You tell them you don't bring knives to track events. You tell them that killing somebody is evil. You tell them that knifing somebody you disagree with, and see, the whole lie and the whole facade is that he claimed that the kid that he murdered was bullying him, which I don't believe, just to be frank with you. And so she's screaming about, well, what do I tell my kids? I tell you what you tell them. You need to tell them they need to find Jesus as you do. And I'm not saying that to be rude and ugly tonight, folks. There's a lot. Nobody has won in this situation. The dead kid's family is hurting tonight. This family is hurting tonight. That's what sin does. That's what murder does. But it's amazing how she likens this. Well, what are we going to tell our kids to do? I'll tell you, there's a lot you can tell your kids to do. I'm going to play that back. Roll the tape. Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. We're calling evil good, folks. We're calling good evil. Woe to a nation that does that. Woe to a people that does that. Murder, we're letting murderers go free. When that happens in a society, we've got no society. We got no society. And we're going to talk about this more this week and so forth. It's late tonight. Listen, I've been grateful that you've been with us. And may the Lord bless you tonight. I got a lot more video to play, but it's just too late. And if you got any questions, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Any other thoughts? Real quick. We'll take your thoughts, questions in the house real quick, 5 minutes. And, of course, none of the 8% that said our interest in Israel should be the same. We're going to chime in. I didn't think they would. They never do. Let's see here. Anybody else want to say anything? Anything over on Facebook tonight? See if there's any comments or questions. Didn't see anything over there. So anyway, any questions? Real quick. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We're going to go. Good to see Bear in the house tonight. Bear, Mayor Cleveland, Stephen, all you guys. Cleo, good to see you, dear, tonight. Yoli Ortiz says, "Oh, Lord Jesus, come please. We are groaning." Yes, we are, Yoli. Jesus needs to come quickly. I'll agree with that, my friend. I will agree with that. Good to see you tonight. God bless you guys out in the West Coast there. Patty Andrews says, "Washington had better watch Israel or watch itself. God has not changed. We still must bless Israel." And Patty, you're correct, but let me remind everybody, when we say bless Israel, folks, it doesn't mean that we give a carte blanche ticket to the Israeli government. The Israeli government's going to make mistakes. They've made mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. But when it comes to sitting there and letting Israel's enemies do to her what they do, and we back her enemies and we don't stand up to her enemies, we basically remove one of the reasons we were created as a country. Now, I know some of the folks out there don't believe that, and that's okay. You don't have to. I do. And you're welcome and entitled to your opinion. And I'll agree, Patty. I'll agree with that 100%. Cleo says Fetterman did not vote, except Fetterman did not vote for the SAVE Act, I don't think. I don't know if he did or not, Cleo. It was 51 to 49. He didn't. I think he said some wording in that was not like he wanted it. And Fetterman's thing is the mail-in ballots. He believes that the mail-in ballots need to be part of the election. And I think that maybe what's happening in California will open his eyes to that. Because I think we're seeing what mail-in ballots do to elections. And maybe he'll change his mind on that on this next vote. We'll see. I hope Thune will bring it up. But you're right. I don't think he did. He did not vote for the SAVE Act. Any other questions tonight? Bear says, I think we have decayed far more than we would like to accept, and there is more of them than we thought. This is a hard reality, but true Christians know how that it's going to get worse. Bear, I couldn't have said it better, my friend. I couldn't have said it better. We are living in dark, troublesome times, and it's times that we need serious people with serious faith and people that are not going to be swayed by the wind. And I think that is a mouthful, and it is going to get worse. It is going to get worse before Jesus comes. There's going to be a remnant of people of which they will get closer to God, grow closer to the Lord. But I will tell you that the country in general is going to get worse before it gets better. The society, we know. And I think what's sad tonight is to see the number of Christians succumbing to this spirit of this age and losing their faith, losing the sense of right, losing the sense of truth, and backing things that are ungodly. They just back things that are absolutely ungodly. So it's good to see you tonight. And you're right. You're right. Well said. Well said. And there are a great deal of things that we need to pray about, without a doubt. All righty. It's good to see everybody tonight. And let's see here. Mary says, you don't stab someone in the chest without hate in your heart. And Mary, I tend to agree with that. And he did stab him in the chest. I'll agree. And I don't think it was an act of self-defense myself. And the jury, he went before a jury of his peers, and they felt the same thing. They charged him with murder. I think the sentence was a little light, but 35 years to 35 years, he'll be eligible. Doesn't mean he's going to get out, but he will be eligible for parole in 17, and it's not 100% certain he'll get out, but he can get out that early. So basically, you kill somebody and you spend 15 years. He's 17. He'll be 32 when he gets out. And as Leslie wisely said, he's going to have a lot of hate and a lot of things built up in his heart, one way or the other. But watching that lady tonight, that's the attitude of many that he had a right to do it. He had a right to stab him in the chest. He had a right to act that way. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You have a problem with somebody, you go to the coach, you go to a teacher, you go to a administrator and say, look, I'm being bullied by this kid. Something needs to happen. You don't take a knife and stab him. And by the way, nobody's wanting to talk about this. Why did he have the knife to begin with at school? Why did he even bring a knife to school? We don't want to discuss that because that might destroy all the narrative of the left. And I'm not going to say what I want to say on that. I'll just leave that alone. I was about to say something that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. I'm going to go out on a good note tonight that I love you guys. Appreciate you being with me on a Tuesday night. If you enjoyed the show, I want you to put some fire in that house. Listen, we're grateful it's late. It's 10:53 in the Central, 11:53 in the East. I'll see you back here in the morning. Tomorrow's Faith Day. Bible study tomorrow night, 8 o'clock on the network, on the Spirit and Word Fire Network. The McFiles.org, we had some old information on there with our mailing address, and we got some announcements to make tomorrow night. Listen, we're grateful for you being with us. Be back with us in the morning at 10 o'clock with our Bible study. We love you all, and we may see you back here Thursday night and Friday night. Something's pending. If we don't do what we are wanting to do Thursday, then I'll be here. If not, I'll see you on the Faith shows the rest of the week in the morning, okay? God God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed out there and be safe and pray for your country. Good night.